What if the monsters are real? Not the fangs and fur kind hiding under your bed, but something far more ancient and far more dangerous. What if the mythical beasts and vengeful gods our ancestors whispered about never actually died? What if they just evolved? What if they shed their old skins, put on business suits and digital avatars, and now live inside your phone, in the brands you trust, and in the very ideas that shape your reality? You don't believe me? Take a look at the swoosh on your running shoes. That's not just a check mark. It's the wing of Nike, the Greek goddess of absolute, crushing victory. It's a symbol whispering a 3,000-year-old command into your subconscious every time you lace up. Dominate, defeat, be the best. Or consider the biggest store on earth, Amazon. Named for a mythical tribe of warrior women who cut off a breast to better fire a bow, who built empires and terrified Greek heroes. Coincidence? Or a deliberate choice to invoke a myth of relentless, world-conquering power? These aren't just clever marketing gimmicks. They are echoes, fragments of an ancient operating system that is still running in the background of human civilization. A psychological software coded in a language of symbols and stories that we've mostly forgotten how to read. We see the bull statue on Wall Street as a symbol of financial optimism. Our ancestors saw the Cretan bull, a creature of immense, terrifying power that demanded sacrifice to be appeased. The myth tells a deeper truth, that the market is not your friend. It is a beast, and when it gets hungry, it will eat. This is the central mystery of our modern world. We think we are rational beings driven by data and science, but we are not. We are creatures of myth, haunted by the ghosts of Olympus and Asgard, living out scripts written for us thousands of years ago. So the real question isn't whether myths are true. The question is, are we trapped inside of them? Is it possible that these ancient stories are not just stories at all, but a kind of code, a survival guide left by our ancestors to warn us about the fundamental, unchanging dangers of the human mind? And if so, have we become so advanced, so sophisticated, that we can no longer understand the warning? To find the answer, we have to start with the myth that defines our age more than any other. The story of the ultimate gift and the ultimate price. The story of Prometheus. In the Greek imagination, humanity was a pathetic creature, shivering in the dark, ignorant and powerless. The Titan Prometheus took pity on us. In an act of cosmic rebellion, he journeyed to the heavens, stole fire from the workshop of the gods, and delivered it to mankind. Fire was technology. It was power. It allowed us to forge tools, cook food, build cities, and ward off the darkness. It was the single greatest gift we ever received. It turned us from animals into something more. And for this, Zeus, the king of the gods, handed down a punishment of unimaginable cruelty. Prometheus was chained to a rock for eternity, where every single day, a great eagle would descend from the sky, tear open his flesh and devour his liver. Every night, the liver would regrow, only for the torture to begin again the next day. Forever. This isn't just a grim fairy tale. This is the story of the 21st century. The fire Prometheus gave us is still burning. We just call it by different names: the internal combustion engine, the silicon chip, the nuclear reactor, the algorithm. Every technological leap we make is a stolen spark from the gods. It gives us power we were never meant to have. The power to split the atom, to edit our own DNA, to create artificial intelligences that can outthink their creators. We are, in every sense, the children of Prometheus. But we are also living his curse. The punishment was not just for him. It was a warning for us. The gift of fire comes with a price. The eagle is the unintended consequence. It is the built-in, inescapable torment that comes with godlike power. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, was a modern Prometheus. He stole the fire from the heart of the atom and gave humanity the power of the sun. And upon seeing his creation, he didn't celebrate. He was haunted. He famously quoted the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He was chained to his rock. The eagle had arrived. Today, new Promethean figures walk among us in Silicon Valley. They give us the fire of global connection, of instant information, of artificial intelligence. And then, years later, they appear before Congress or in documentaries filled with regret. They warn us that the fire they gave us is burning out of control. They tell us that social media is addicting our children and destroying social trust. They warn that AI could be an existential threat. They are chained to the very rock they built, tormented by the eagle of their own creation. The myth plays out again and again. The names change, but the story remains the same. The myth knew. The myth always knew that our greatest strength, our relentless drive to innovate, is also the source of our deepest anxieties. It's a feature, not a bug, of the human condition. This pattern, this repeating structure, is what the great mythologist Joseph Campbell called an archetype. And the story of Prometheus is just one. Our world is secretly governed by a handful of these core myths, these archetypal scripts. The most powerful, the one you see everywhere from the Bible to Hollywood, is the one we tell about ourselves, the hero's journey. It's a simple, elegant blueprint. A hero in an ordinary world receives a call to adventure. They are hesitant at first but are guided by a mentor figure. They cross a threshold into a new, dangerous world where they face a series of trials, defeat a great evil, and claim a treasure. They then make the journey home, changed, to share their prize with their community. Sound familiar? It should. It's the story of Luke Skywalker leaving his moisture farm on Tatooine, guided by Obi-Wan Kenobi, to destroy the Death Star and save the galaxy. It's the story of Frodo Baggins leaving the Shire, guided by Gandalf, to destroy the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom. It's Harry Potter leaving the Dursleys, guided by Dumbledore. It's Katniss Everdeen leaving District 12. It's Neo taking the red pill. This isn't lazy writing. It's the most resonant story we can possibly tell, because on a subconscious level, we believe it's the story of our own lives. We cast ourselves as the hero. Leaving our hometown for college is the call to adventure. A tough first boss is the dragon we have to slay. The wise older colleague is our mentor. The promotion, the degree, the successful business, that is the treasure we bring back home. We use this ancient myth to make sense of our own struggles, to give meaning to our suffering, and to frame our own narrative. It's the script we use to convince ourselves that our life is not just a random series of events, but a purposeful, meaningful quest. We are so deeply embedded in this myth that it shapes our most fundamental institutions. Think about the quintessential American dream. It's a perfect hero's journey. The log cabin to White House narrative. The garage startup that becomes a global empire. It's the story of an ordinary person who, through grit and determination, overcomes incredible odds to achieve something extraordinary. It's a story that tells us that anyone can be the hero. So, we have the myth of the innovator Prometheus, which perfectly explains our terrifying paradoxical relationship with technology. And we have the myth of the hero, which provides the blueprint for our entertainment, our careers, and our national identity. These are just two threads in a vast, invisible web of stories that quietly dictate our beliefs, our behaviors, and our destiny. But they are not the only ones. Other darker archetypes are at play. The trickster who disrupts order and sows chaos, thrives in our media and political landscapes. The Great Mother, the archetype of nature and nurture, wages a silent war with the Sky Father, the archetype of structure and civilization, in our endless debates about the environment and progress. These ancient forces are not dead. They are awake and they are active. We've just forgotten their names. We've been living inside these stories for so long that we can no longer see the walls. But what happens when we start to recognize the patterns? What happens when we learn to read the code? And most importantly, what is the one single primordial myth that all of these other stories are built upon, the master story that, once you see it, will change the way you look at the world forever? To find that master story, we don't look for a single specific tale whispered around a prehistoric fire. We look for a blueprint, a pattern, a psychological schematic so deeply embedded in the human experience that it repeats itself, endlessly, across every culture and every era. The brilliant mythologist Joseph Campbell called it the monomyth, but you probably know it by its more famous name, the hero's journey. This isn't just the structure for Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. This is the operating system for human narrative. And once you see the code, you start to see it everywhere, not just in movies but in the news, in the advertisements trying to sell you a car, and even in the story you tell yourself about your own life. It's a surprisingly simple, elegant loop. It begins in what Campbell called the ordinary world. This is the hero's home, the place of comfort and familiarity. It's the Shire for Frodo Baggins. It's the dusty moisture farm on Tatooine for Luke Skywalker. It's a cramped closet under the stairs for Harry Potter. It's our 9-to-5 job, our daily routine, our predictable life. It's safe, but it's stagnant. There's a sense that something is missing, that a bigger life is waiting just over the horizon. Then something happens. The call to adventure. A disruption. The discovery of a cryptic message inside a droid. The arrival of a mysterious wizard on your 111th birthday. An owl delivering a letter that your cruel uncle refuses to let you read. This call is an invitation to leave the ordinary world and step into the unknown, the special world, where the stakes are higher and the rules are different. But what's the first, most human reaction to a call like that? Fear, doubt, hesitation. This is the refusal of the call. I can't go, the hero says. I have responsibilities. I'm not strong enough. I'm not the right person. Luke tells Obi-Wan he can't leave his aunt and uncle. Frodo is terrified by the prospect of taking the ring to Mordor. This moment of refusal is critical. It's what makes the hero relatable. They aren't a fearless superhero. They're just like us, paralyzed by the enormity of the task ahead. Right at this moment of doubt, a crucial figure appears. The mentor. The wise old guide who gives the hero the tools, the knowledge, or the confidence they need to proceed. Obi-Wan Kenobi gives Luke his father's lightsaber and teaches him about the Force. Gandalf gives Frodo the map and the counsel for his journey. Dumbledore gives Harry the crucial pieces of information he needs to survive. The mentor doesn't solve the hero's problems, but they empower the hero to solve them for themselves. Armed with this new confidence, the hero finally makes the choice. They commit. They cross the first threshold, leaving the ordinary world behind and entering the world of adventure. This is the point of no return. When Luke Skywalker looks at his burning homestead, he knows he can never go back to being a simple farm boy. When Frodo and Sam step out of the Shire, their old life is over. This is the moment we quit the dead-end job. The moment we buy the one-way ticket. The moment we finally say yes to the terrifying, thrilling unknown. Now, inside this special world, the hero faces a series of tests, allies, and enemies. This is where the real growth happens. Luke learns to use the Force and he meets Han and Chewbacca. Frodo forms the Fellowship of the Ring and learns to evade the Nazgul. Harry Potter makes friends with Ron and Hermione and enemies with Draco Malfoy. These trials aren't random. They're designed to teach the hero the skills they'll need for their ultimate confrontation. They learn who to trust, how the new world operates, and what their own true strengths are. This all leads to the central crisis of the story, the ordeal. This is the dark heart of the journey. The hero must confront their greatest fear. They face a symbolic or even a literal death. Luke is pulled under the water in the Death Star's trash compactor. Frodo is stung and paralyzed by the giant spider Shelob. Harry faces Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest. In this moment, the old self, the fearful, uncertain self from the ordinary world, has to die so a new, more capable self can be reborn. Having survived death, the hero claims the reward. They seize the sword, they get the treasure, they rescue the princess. Luke destroys the Death Star. Frodo, against all odds, gets the ring to the heart of Mount Doom. This is the whole point of the quest, the elixir they came to find. But the story isn't over. The hero must now take the road back. The journey home is often just as perilous as the journey out. The forces of evil don't just give up. They pursue the hero relentlessly. The Empire strikes back. The Eye of Sauron is ever watchful. The hero must flee, often with the help of the allies they made along the way. Finally, the hero returns to the ordinary world, but they are not the same person who left. This is the resurrection. They have been transformed by their journey. They are masters of both the ordinary and the special worlds. Luke is no longer a whiny farm boy. He is a Jedi Knight. And with their return, they bring the elixir, the reward, back to their community. They save the day, heal the land, restore the kingdom. They use their newfound wisdom and power to improve the world they came from. This pattern, this is the code. And it's running on a loop all around you. Think about the last time you felt stuck. That was your ordinary world. That nagging feeling that you should apply for a new job, start a business, or move to a new city. That was the call to adventure. The voice in your head that said, "It's too risky, you'll probably fail, it's better to just stay put." That was the refusal of the call. The friend, family member, or book that gave you that final push of encouragement. That was your mentor. The day you submitted the application or packed the first box. You just crossed the threshold. This isn't just a self-help analogy. It's the fundamental structure of how we process and value transformation. Brands know this. They don't sell you a product, they sell you a role in a story. Nike doesn't sell shoes. It sells you the just do it call to adventure. Apple doesn't sell computers. It sells you a tool to think different, To be the creative hero in a world of boring conformity. The car isn't a car. It's the magical vehicle that lets you escape the ordinary world on your quest for freedom. The brand is the mentor, the product is the elixir, and you are always the hero. Political campaigns are masters of this narrative. Their candidate is the humble hero, called from their ordinary world to enter the swamp of Washington, D.C. They will face the dragon of the opposing party, overcome the trials of the campaign trail, and return with the elixir of economic prosperity or national security to save the people. It works because, on a deep mythological level, we are wired to respond to this story. It's the story of growth itself. We all start in the ordinary world of childhood, dependent and safe. Puberty is a call to adventure, an invitation into the strange new world of adulthood. We often refuse, clinging to the comfort of what we know. Mentors, parents, teachers, coaches guide us. We cross the threshold when we leave home for college or our first apartment. We face the trials of careers, relationships, and responsibilities. We all face our own ordeals: illness, loss, failure, moments that feel like a kind of death. And if we survive, we are reborn stronger and wiser, able to bring that wisdom back to our own families and communities. This is the master story because it is our story. It's the psychological blueprint for a successful human life. The story of leaving the nest, conquering a challenge, and returning with something of value for the tribe. It has echoed for millennia not just because it's entertaining, but because it's a survival guide. It teaches us that facing our fears leads to growth, that mentorship is vital, and that our greatest purpose is to bring back what we've learned to help others. But if this is the master pattern, what about the players inside of it? The hero is just one piece of the puzzle. What about the other figures that appear again and again? The villain, the shapeshifter, the trickster, the herald, the wise old man. These aren't just characters. They are archetypes, fundamental aspects of the human psyche that live inside every single one of us. They are the roles we play and the roles others play for us. So the next question becomes, which role are you playing right now? And what happens when you realize the hero and the villain might just be two sides of the very same coin? This very question lies at the heart of our most enduring stories. Take Loki, the Norse god of mischief. For centuries, he was the clear-cut villain, the catalyst for the end of the world. But look at how we see him now. In our modern blockbusters, he is the charismatic anti-hero. He's broken, witty, driven by a desperate need for acceptance. We don't just fear him, we understand him. We even root for him. He's no longer a simple force of evil. He's a reflection of our own complexities, our own capacity for both good and ill. The myth hasn't changed, but we have. Our modern lens has transformed the villain into a tragic figure, proving that the line between hero and monster is often just a matter of perspective. Or consider the Greek titan Prometheus. To the gods on Olympus, he was a traitor, a thief who stole their sacred fire and gave it to the lowly mortals. For this, Zeus condemned him to an eternity of torment, a villain's punishment for a villain's crime. But from our perspective down here on Earth, Prometheus is arguably the greatest hero in all of mythology. He gave us the spark of civilization itself. He suffered for our sake. So which is he? A treacherous criminal or a noble savior? The answer is both. It depends entirely on whose side you're on. This same ambiguity defines our modern world. Think of the corporate whistleblower who leaks company secrets to expose a massive fraud. To the public, they're a hero, a champion of the people. To the corporation and its shareholders, they're a traitor who violated trust and destroyed value. The ancient story of Prometheus is playing out right now, in our headlines and courtrooms. The myth provides the blueprint for a conflict that is fundamentally human, the clash between established order and revolutionary progress. And this isn't just a global phenomenon. We have our own uniquely American version of this myth. It's the story of the lone hero, the rugged individualist who stands against a corrupt system. You see it in every classic Western. The quiet stranger who rides into a town run by a ruthless cattle baron and single-handedly brings justice with a six-shooter. He operates outside the law to restore the law. This is the American monomyth. It's the story of John Wick, of Rambo, of the reluctant hero forced to do what the system cannot. This archetype is baked into the American psyche. It informs our politics, our love of underdog stories, and our deep-seated suspicion of centralized power. It's a myth that tells us that one good person, with enough will and moral clarity, can face down any evil. It's an incredibly powerful and inspiring narrative, but it also has a shadow side. It can foster a dangerous belief that complex, systemic problems can be solved by simple, violent action. It can make us look for a single savior instead of encouraging collective responsibility. This one mythological archetype, born from the frontier and retold in a million different ways, continues to shape how America sees itself and its place in the world, for better and for worse. But mythology gives us more than just the characters we play. It gives us the stage itself. It gives us the rules of the game. And the most powerful rule, the one that has haunted humanity since the dawn of thought, is the concept of fate. In ancient Greece, they were the Moirai, the Fates, 3 old women who would spin, measure, and cut the thread of every mortal's life. Not even Zeus, the king of the gods, could alter their design. In Norse mythology, they were the Norns, weaving the tapestry of destiny at the foot of the world tree. The hero's greatest struggle wasn't against a monster, but against a future that was already written. The story of Oedipus is a tragedy precisely because every action he takes to avoid his prophesied doom, killing his father and marrying his mother, is the very action that leads him directly to it. He was a puppet, and his strings were pulled by fate. We might think we've outgrown such primitive ideas. We are modern, rational people. We believe in science and free will. But have we really escaped the idea of fate? Or have we just given it new, more scientific-sounding names? Think about it. When we talk about genetic determinism, the idea that our DNA is a blueprint for not just our eye color but our temperament, our intelligence, our addictions, what are we really talking about? We're talking about a code written inside us before we were born that dictates the course of our lives. It's the Moirai, but with a double helix. When sociologists talk about the cycle of poverty or the predictive power of the zip code you were born in, what are they describing? They're describing a system so powerful it can predetermine a person's health, education, and economic future. It's the tapestry of the Norns, woven not with magical thread, but with statistics and social structures. Even our language is saturated with the ghost of this myth. When a relationship fails, we say we were star-crossed lovers. When a chance encounter leads to a marriage, we say it was meant to be. When we narrowly avoid an accident, we say we dodged a bullet, as if some unseen marksman had us in their sights. These aren't just figures of speech. They are echoes of a deep, ancient belief that our lives are not entirely our own. They reveal a psychological need to find meaning and order in the chaos of existence. Believing that everything happens for a reason is a modern secular prayer. It's a way of coping with tragedy and uncertainty by placing our trust in a grand, unseen narrative, a destiny. This modern myth of fate has profound consequences. On one hand, it can be a source of immense comfort. It can absolve us of the crushing weight of responsibility for things beyond our control. But on the other hand, it can be a cage. If your fate is already written in your genes, or your social class, or some cosmic plan, then what's the point of trying to change? It can breed a sense of helplessness, a resignation that turns people into passive spectators in their own lives. The tension between free will and determinism isn't a debate reserved for philosophy classrooms. It is a fundamental conflict that plays out inside every one of us every single day. And it's a conflict that was first given a name and a face by ancient mythology. So we have the roles we play, the hero, the villain, the trickster. And we have the script we've been given, the inescapable hand of fate. The ultimate mythological journey, the one that resonates most deeply with us today, is the story of the hero who dares to rip up that script. The one who looks at their destiny and says, no, they fight not just the monster, but the prophecy that said the monster would win. This is the evolution of our storytelling. From Oedipus, who was tragically bound to his fate, to the modern heroes who succeed by forging their own. We've become obsessed with the idea of breaking the cycle, of defying the odds, of being the master of our own destiny. But this raises a terrifying question. If we can, in fact, defy our destiny, that means we are responsible for it. There is no grand plan. There are no strings being pulled. There is only us and the choices we make. And perhaps the most significant choices we make are governed by a myth so vast and so powerful, we don't even see it as a myth at all. It's a system we are all born into, a force that dictates where we live, what we eat, and how we spend the vast majority of our lives. It's the ultimate modern mythology, and its gods are printed on paper. The dollar bill in your pocket, the numbers in your bank account, they feel real, don't they? Tangible. But they are perhaps the most successful work of fiction ever created. an object with practically zero intrinsic value. A piece of paper, a flash of data on a screen, is imbued with the power to command labor, build empires, and start wars. How? Through the exact same mechanism that gave Zeus his thunderbolt and Ra his sun barge. Collective belief. It's a shared story, a global consensus, a myth. Think about it. You can't eat a dollar bill. You can't build a house with it. Its power exists entirely in our minds. You accept that piece of paper as payment only because you have absolute faith that someone else will accept it from you. And they accept it from you because they believe someone else will accept it from them. It's a chain of trust, a web of belief stretching across billions of people, a testament to humanity's unique ability to cooperate around a common fiction. This fiction is the mythology of money. Like all great myths, it has an origin story, a long and dramatic evolution from the tangible to the divine. In the beginning there was barter, the age before the gods. If you were a farmer with a surplus of wheat and you needed a new pair of shoes, you had to find a shoemaker who just so happened to need wheat. It was inefficient, clumsy, and it severely limited the scale of human cooperation. We needed a better story. So we created the first demigods of commerce, commodity money. Things like salt, shells, and cattle. These had some intrinsic value, but their real power came when we all agreed they could be a universal medium of exchange. Then came the titans, gold and silver. Here was something truly special. They were rare, durable, and beautiful. They didn't rot like wheat or die like cattle. We collectively decided these metals were sacred vessels of value. For thousands of years, these gleaming gods ruled the world of trade. An ounce of gold was an ounce of gold whether you were in Rome, Persia, or China. Its value was thought to be inherent, a physical law of the universe. But even this was too clunky for a rapidly growing world. Carrying heavy sacks of gold was dangerous and impractical. So we took the next great leap of faith. We created a priesthood. Goldsmiths, who later became bankers, offered to store the sacred metal in their secure vaults. In return, they gave you a piece of paper, a certificate, a promise that you could redeem it for your gold at any time. This was the birth of representative money. And here, the myth begins to detach from reality. People weren't trading gold anymore. They were trading the promise of gold. They were trading paper. The story was becoming more important than the physical object it represented. For a long time, this system worked. The paper was just a high priest's token, a key to the holy sanctum where the real God, the gold, resided. But then, in the 20th century, we performed the ultimate act of theological abstraction. Led by the United States in 1971, the nations of the world, one by one, severed the link. They cut the cord connecting the paper to the gold. The promise was broken. The vaults were, in a sense, declared empty. And what happened? Nothing. The system continued. Why? Because by then our faith was no longer in the gold. Our faith was in the story itself. The paper money, now called fiat currency, was no longer a claim on a physical asset. It was a claim on, well, nothing. Its value was now backed only by government decree. The word fiat literally means let it be done in Latin, and more importantly, by our unshakable collective faith in the system. The God was no longer made of metal. The God was now an idea, a pure, powerful, and invisible force sustained only by our belief. And like any major religion, this mythology of money has its own cathedrals, its own rituals, its own moral codes, and its own all-powerful priesthood. The cathedrals are the stock exchanges of New York, London, and Tokyo. Grand temples of commerce where millions of followers place their faith and their fortunes every single day. The trading floor is a scene of frantic worship, and the ticker tape is a form of divination. Its cryptic numbers interpreted by analysts and pundits are modern oracles to predict the favor or wrath of the market gods. We personify these forces with our own sacred animals. The charging bull, a symbol of optimism and divine blessing, and the swiping bear, a harbinger of fear and punishment. The rituals are woven into the fabric of our daily lives. The simple act of swiping a credit card is an appeal to the god of credit, a request for a small miracle of instant purchasing power. We conduct a complex ritual every year called filing taxes, an offering made to the state, the ultimate guarantor of the myth, to ensure its stability and continuation. And there is a powerful moral code, the credit score. This single number has become a form of digital judgment. It doesn't just measure your ability to repay a loan. It's widely seen as a measure of your reliability, your trustworthiness, your very character as a person. A high score is a sign of virtue, granting you blessings and access to the inner sanctums of the financial world. Mortgages, car loans, opportunities. A low score is a mark of sin, a form of excommunication that can lock you out of a home, a job, or even a relationship. It is a modern system of absolution and damnation, calculated by algorithms. At the top of this system sits the priesthood, the central bankers, the heads of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. These are the high priests. They are the guardians of the faith. When the high priest of the Federal Reserve speaks, the entire world listens. His words, carefully chosen, are pronouncements from the divine. A slight change in an interest rate, a subtle shift in theological doctrine, can create or destroy trillions of dollars of wealth overnight, dictating the fate of nations and the lives of billions. Below them are the investment bankers and hedge fund managers, the bishops and cardinals who manage the vast wealth of the church, directing the flow of capital, which is the lifeblood, the very spirit of our economic God. And the economists are the theologians, endlessly debating the nature of the deity in complex papers, arguing over the proper rituals and sacrifices needed to ensure its continued benevolence in the form of our central dogma, the absolute necessity of perpetual growth. This entire global structure, from the coin in your pocket to the abstract financial instruments traded in the blink of an eye, is a human invention. It's a story we wrote, a mythology we enacted, to solve the problem of cooperation on a massive scale. And it has been wildly successful. It has allowed us to build the modern world. But it is so pervasive, so deeply embedded in every aspect of our existence, that we no longer see it as a story. We see it as reality itself. We see it as a natural law, as fundamental as gravity. But it's not. It's a collective dream. And the moment we stop believing in it, the gods on paper turn back into what they truly are, worthless ink and fiber. This economic myth is arguably the most powerful story we have ever told ourselves, but it is not the only one that governs our lives. Because this myth of money is so powerful, it requires another myth to direct its power, to give it purpose and meaning. It requires the mythology of the state. It is the story of a place that exists more in our minds than on any map. Ask yourself a simple question. What is a country? Take the United States, for example. Is it the land? The dirt and rocks and rivers between two oceans? Not really. That land existed for millennia before the United States was ever conceived, and it will exist long after. Is it the people? Well, the people are constantly changing. Generations are born and die. Immigrants arrive with new cultures and new dreams. The collection of 330 million individuals alive today is almost entirely different from the collection that lived here a century ago. So what is it? If it's not the land and it's not the people, what are we talking about when we say America? We're talking about a story, a myth. It's an imagined order, a collective fiction that millions of us agree to believe in. You will never meet every other American. You will never know all their names, their hopes, their fears. It's impossible. And yet, there is a powerful bond, a sense of shared identity that connects a fisherman in Maine to a software engineer in California. That connection isn't forged by blood or direct acquaintance. It's forged by a shared belief in a common narrative. This is the great magic of the state. Solves the problem of scale. In a small tribe of 150 people, you can know everyone. Social order is maintained through personal relationships. But you can't run a nation of millions on handshakes and personal favors. To get millions of strangers to cooperate, to pay taxes, to obey the same laws, to fight and die for one another, you need something far more powerful than personal connection. You need a myth. And like any great mythology, the myth of the nation has all the essential components. It has its pantheon of gods and demigods. We call them the founding fathers. Think about how we depict them. They aren't just historical figures, they are archetypes. George Washington is the reluctant king, the American Cincinnatus, who takes up ultimate power only to lay it down again. A figure of profound civic virtue. Thomas Jefferson is the great scribe, the philosopher-prophet who penned the nation's sacred text in a moment of divine inspiration. Benjamin Franklin is the wise trickster, the embodiment of American ingenuity and wit, pulling lightning from the sky. We carve their faces into mountains and erect towering monuments to them, treating them not as flawed men of their time, but as the divine originators of our world. Every great mythology also needs its sacred texts, its holy scriptures that lay down the fundamental laws of the universe. We have ours. the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. These are not merely old documents. They are treated as foundational covenants. The Declaration is our Genesis story, establishing the moral firmament. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. These are magic words. They are an incantation that conjures a nation into existence based on an idea, not a bloodline. The Constitution is our book of law, a complex system of rules and commandments that we debate and interpret with the same theological fervor that scholars once reserved for the Bible or the Quran. We have our high priests, Supreme Court justices, who spend their lives deciphering the original intent of the framers, our national prophets. And what is a belief system without its rituals and symbols? Think of the flag. It is not just a piece of colored cloth. It is a sacred object. We have intricate rules for its handling, its folding, its display. We pledge our allegiance to it, an act of daily devotion for millions of schoolchildren. We are told never to let it touch the ground. Soldiers carry it into battle, and we drape it over the coffins of our heroes. The national anthem is our hymn, a song that evokes a deep, almost spiritual connection to the collective. The 4th of July is our high holy day, where we celebrate our creation story with ritualized explosions in the sky, a symbolic reenactment of the bombs bursting in air that secured our freedom. These rituals are not trivial. They are the glue. They are the repeated actions that make the imagined community feel real, tangible, and deeply personal. This national myth even sanctifies the land itself. We talk of American soil as if the very dirt has a special quality. We create national parks, vast cathedrals of nature preserved not just for their beauty, but as a shared inheritance of the American people. We make pilgrimages to our holy sites, to Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the nation's birthplace, to the Gettysburg battlefield, where the soul of the country was tested by fire, to the Lincoln Memorial, a marble temple built to honor our martyred Savior, a man who died to preserve the Union and redeem its original sin. This is the mythology of the state. It is a story woven from heroes, sacred texts, and holy rituals, and its power is immense. It is this myth, this shared belief, that gives the government its legitimacy. Why do you pay your taxes? You're not giving your money to a specific person named Joe or Donald. You are giving an offering to an abstract entity, the United States of America, in the belief that it will use that offering for the collective good, to build roads, to fund schools, to provide for the common defense. The myth turns your compliance from a submission to force into a willing act of civic participation. It is this myth that allows a nation to raise an army. Young men and women are not asked to die for the sake of the current president or for a specific politician. They are asked to make the ultimate sacrifice for their country, for the flag, for the abstract ideals of liberty and democracy. They are fighting for the story. The myth transforms the brutal reality of war into a noble, heroic endeavor, a defense of the faith. This is the myth that directs the power of money. The story of money allows millions to cooperate economically, but the story of the state gives that cooperation a direction, a purpose. It channels that immense economic power toward collective projects on a scale unimaginable by any ancient empire. It allows us to build interstate highways, to put a man on the moon, to fund research that cures diseases. It also allows us to build aircraft carriers and nuclear weapons. The myth is a tool, and like any tool, its power can be used to build or to destroy. And the United States is not unique. Every nation on earth is built upon a similar foundation. Every country has its own pantheon of heroes, its own sacred texts, its own flags and anthems and holy days. The French have Joan of Arc and the Declaration of the Rights of Man. The Chinese have the Yellow Emperor and the legacy of Mao. The British have the Magna Carta and the myth of the Blitz spirit. Each is a unique story, a distinct imagined community, a tribe of millions bound together by a shared fiction. These myths provide us with identity, with purpose, and with a sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves. They are a source of immense comfort and pride, but they are also a source of immense danger, because these are the most powerful stories we have ever told ourselves, aside from the gods themselves. And for millennia, the story that has defined our world more than any other is the one that happens when these great national myths collide. It is the story of us versus them. It is the mythology of war. From the moment the first human tribe clashed with another over a water source or a hunting ground, the physical battle was only half the story. The other half, the more important half, was the one they told themselves around the fire that night. It was the story of why their cause was just, why their god was stronger, why their warriors were braver, and why their enemies were less than human. This is the essential function of war mythology: to transform the brutal, chaotic, and often pointless act of killing into something noble, necessary, and even sacred. Think of the single most famous war in all of Western literature, the Trojan War. Was it really about one woman, Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships? Historians would argue it was more likely about trade routes, resources, and geopolitical power in the Aegean Sea. But nobody goes to die for a trade route. Nobody sacrifices their son for control of the Hellespont. No, you need a better story. You need a myth. You need a beautiful queen stolen by a treacherous prince. You need a violation of sacred hospitality. You need a story of national honor that must be avenged, no matter the cost. The story of Helen transforms a conflict of greed into a crusade for justice. It's the perfect casus belli, a justification for war so emotionally powerful it can sustain a 10-year siege. And within that grand myth we find the smaller, more personal ones. The story of Achilles. He isn't just a soldier. He is the embodiment of martial rage, a demigod so skilled in the art of killing that his presence alone can turn the tide of battle. His story isn't about tactics or logistics. It's about glory, honor, and the tragic fate of the perfect warrior. He chooses a short, glorious life over a long-forgotten one. This is the myth that convinces young men to run toward the sound of swords clashing, to believe that a beautiful death is preferable to an ugly life. On the other side, you have Hector, the noble protector of his city, the loving father and husband. He isn't a villain. He is the hero of the Trojan myth, fighting to defend his home from foreign invaders. And overseeing it all, the gods: Athena, Hera, and Poseidon siding with the Greeks, Apollo, Artemis, and Aphrodite with the Trojans. The war is not merely a human affair. It is a cosmic drama played out on the fields of Troy. This divine involvement does something crucial. It removes a degree of human responsibility. The war becomes fated, inevitable. It's not just a choice made by kings and generals, it's the will of the universe itself. Now let this ancient blueprint settle in your mind. A righteous cause, a heroic warrior, and a divine or ideological mandate. Does any of that sound familiar? It should, because we have been retelling the myth of the Trojan War ever since. We just changed the names. The divine mandate is the first and most powerful piece of the puzzle. In a secularizing world, we may not claim that Zeus or Odin is on our side, but we have created new gods to sanction our wars. We call them freedom, democracy, justice, or the fatherland. During the Cold War, the conflict wasn't just America versus the Soviet Union. It was a mythological struggle between the gods of capitalism and communism, each side utterly convinced of its own divine righteousness. The rhetoric wasn't about spheres of influence. It was about light versus darkness, liberty versus tyranny. When you frame a war as a battle for the very soul of humanity, you can justify almost any action. You are no longer just a soldier. You are an agent of a higher power, a crusader in a holy war. Then comes the myth of the hero, the modern Achilles. We no longer have demigods, but we create them. Every war needs its heroes, its larger-than-life figures who embody the nation's fighting spirit. Think of the posters from World War II, the stoic, square-jawed American GI, a symbol of quiet strength and resolve. Or consider the almost superhuman status given to special forces units like the Navy SEALs. They are our modern Spartans, our Achilles, figures shrouded in a mythology of impossible training, unwavering courage, and lethal precision. Their stories, both real and fictionalized in films and video games, serve the same purpose as the epic poems of old. They create an ideal for others to aspire to and a symbol for the nation to rally behind. We tell the story of the lone sniper with 100 confirmed kills, the pilot who single-handedly downed 5 enemy planes, the soldier who threw himself on a grenade to save his comrades. These stories are vital. They personalize the vast, impersonal machinery of war, giving it a human face, a heroic face. And of course there is the enemy. In the Trojan myth, the Trojans are portrayed as decadent, treacherous, and cowardly, with the notable exception of Hector, whose nobility only serves to heighten the tragedy. In modern war mythology, this dehumanization is dialed up to 11. The enemy is rarely depicted as a complex human being with a family, fears, and motivations. Instead, they are turned into a monstrous caricature. They are the Huns, the Krauts, the Gooks, the terrorists. They are a faceless horde, a swarm and infestation. They are Grendel at the door of the mead hall. By stripping them of their humanity, the myth makes it psychologically possible for our heroes to kill them. You don't kill a man. You eliminate a threat. You don't destroy a village. You cleanse an area of insurgents. The language itself becomes a mythological tool, creating a reality where empathy is a liability and violence is a solution. This brings us back to Helen, the righteous cause. Every modern war needs its Helen of Troy. It needs a simple, emotionally charged story that can be easily understood and repeated. A story that cuts through the complexities of international politics and presents a clear moral choice. Remember the sinking of the Lusitania, the attack on Pearl Harbor. These events, tragic as they were immediately absorbed into a mythological framework. They became the story of an unprovoked, dastardly attack on an innocent victim. They were the modern equivalent of Paris stealing Helen from Sparta. They provided the moral justification, the righteous anger needed to mobilize an entire nation for war. More recently, the narrative of weapons of mass destruction served this exact purpose. It was a simple, terrifying story that framed a preventive invasion as a necessary act of self-defense. The story may not have been true, but its mythological power was undeniable. This is the enduring legacy of our war myths. They provide the framework that allows societies to organize for mass violence. They give meaning to suffering, purpose to sacrifice, and justification to destruction. They turn the grim reality of organized slaughter into a heroic epic. From the Norse sagas of warriors seeking a glorious death to enter Valhalla, to the Japanese ideal of the samurai who lives and dies by a code of honor, the pattern is the same. The myth is the psychological software that allows the hardware of war to function. But here is the terrifying truth. These myths are so powerful, so deeply embedded in our culture, that we often mistake them for reality. We consume them in our movies, our books, our news reports. We see the world as a grand stage for heroes and villains, for clashes of civilizations, for epic struggles between good and evil. We are still fighting on the plains of Troy, armed with stories. And the most dangerous part is, we often don't even realize we're living inside the myth until the walls of our own city are burning. But these myths don't just build empires and topple them. They build and topple something far more intimate, far more personal, our own sense of self. The most powerful stories aren't the ones we read in books. They're the ones we live inside, the invisible architecture of our own lives. The walls aren't just around our cities. They're around our minds, and the blueprint for those walls was drawn up millennia ago. We are all, each and every one of us, the protagonist in our own personal mythology. Think about it. When you make a major life decision, quitting a job, moving to a new city, starting a family, you don't just weigh the pros and cons on a spreadsheet. You frame it as a story. I was stuck in a dead-end town, but I knew there was something more for me out there. I had to face my fears and leave a toxic situation to find my own strength. It was a long, hard road, but I finally achieved my dream. This isn't just a quirk of language. It's the fundamental operating system of the human psyche. And the source code for that system is a mythic structure so universal it has its own name, the hero's journey. The great mythologist Joseph Campbell identified this pattern after studying myths from every corner of the globe, from the jungles of the Amazon to the frozen tundra of the Arctic. He found the same core story, repeated endlessly with different characters and different scenery. A hero living in an ordinary world receives a call to adventure. At first, they refuse the call, paralyzed by fear and doubt. But a mentor appears, giving them the wisdom or the tool they need to proceed. They cross the threshold into a new, dangerous world, where they face a series of trials and ordeals. They confront their deepest fear in a final, climactic battle. And if they survive, they seize a great prize, a treasure, a piece of knowledge, a new sense of self. Finally, they return to their ordinary world, transformed, bearing a gift that can heal their community. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's the plot of Star Wars. It's the Lord of the Rings. It's the Matrix. It's Harry Potter. But it's also the story of the entrepreneur who risks everything to launch a startup. It's the story of the artist who struggles for years in obscurity before their big break. It's the story of the recovering addict fighting their demons one day at a time. It's the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, a narrative map for navigating the chaos of life. The self-help industry, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, is built almost entirely on this single mythic structure. Every guru, every life coach, every motivational speaker is essentially playing the role of the mentor, telling you, the hero, to answer your call to adventure. They tell you to slay your dragons, which is just ancient mythological shorthand for confronting your inner fears and external obstacles. They promise you the ultimate boon of self-actualization, financial freedom, or spiritual enlightenment. They're selling you a script for your life, one that has been market-tested for thousands of years. It's so powerful because it taps into a deep primal need not just to live, but to live a life of meaning, a life that feels like a story worth telling. But why is this pattern so universal? Why do we instinctively structure our lives and our entertainment around this same journey? The psychologist Carl Jung had a revolutionary theory. He proposed that humanity shares a collective unconscious, a vast, inherited reservoir of memories and experiences from our ancestors. And the language of this deep, shared mind is not words but symbols and archetypes. Archetypes are the original models, the recurring characters that populate our myths and our dreams. You know them instantly. The wise old mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf, Dumbledore. The trickster who disrupts the established order, Loki, Prometheus, Bugs Bunny. The great mother, the eternal child, the shadow. And of course the hero. Jung believed these weren't just literary devices. They are fundamental aspects of our own personality. We all have a hero within us, a mentor, a trickster, and a shadow. The process of becoming a whole, integrated person, he argued, is the process of recognizing and embracing all of these archetypes within ourselves. Our modern world has become a giant stage where these archetypes play out, not in sacred groves, but in boardrooms and on billboards. Corporations understand the power of archetypes better than anyone. They don't sell you a product, they sell you an identity, a role, and a myth. Nike doesn't sell shoes, it sells the archetype of the hero, telling you to just do it, to overcome your limits and achieve greatness. Apple doesn't sell computers, it sells the archetype of the creator and the rebel, urging you to think different. Harley-Davidson doesn't sell motorcycles, it sells the freedom of the outlaw archetype, a chance to break free from the constraints of a 9-to-5 life. When you buy one of these products, you're not just making a consumer choice. You are, on a subconscious level, trying on a mythic costume. You're casting yourself in a story. This is the subtle magic of modern capitalism. It takes our deepest psychological needs, our ancient yearning for mythic identity, and packages it for sale. But there's a danger in this. Just as national myths can trap us in cycles of conflict, our personal myths can become prisons. The story you tell yourself about your life dictates the life you live. If your internal myth is that you are a victim, you will unconsciously seek out situations that confirm that narrative. You will see every challenge not as a trial to be overcome by a hero, but as another piece of evidence that the world is against you. If your myth is that you are always the sidekick, the supporting character, you will shy away from the spotlight and let others take the lead, never answering your own call to adventure. Therapy, in many ways, is the process of mythic rewriting. It's about excavating the old broken stories we tell ourselves, stories often inherited from our childhood, and consciously crafting a new one. It's about realizing that you don't have to be the victim or the sidekick. You can choose to be the hero of your own journey. You can recognize that the dragon you must slay is not an external monster, but an internal fear, a limiting belief. This is the immense power and paradox of myth in our individual lives. It provides the very structure for meaning, purpose, and growth. It gives us a map for the dark woods of uncertainty, but that same map, if followed blindly, can lead us in circles, trapping us in a narrative that no longer serves us. We live and breathe these stories every single day. From the brands we choose to the career paths we follow to the way we frame our greatest triumphs and our deepest sorrows. We are all storytellers, and the most important story we will ever tell is the one we tell about ourselves. The question is, are you consciously writing your own myth, or are you unconsciously living out a script written for you by your culture, by your past, or by the long, deep shadows of a world that existed thousands of years before you were born? That question is the fulcrum upon which our modern lives pivot. Because while it's tempting to think of mythology as the dusty relic of ancient civilizations, the truth is, the myth-making machinery has never been more powerful, more sophisticated, or more pervasive than it is right now. The old gods may have retreated from Mount Olympus, but new ones have risen to take their place, and their temples are all around us. They are on our screens, on our billboards, and in our minds. We have simply swapped the pantheon for the portfolio, Think about the most powerful brands in the world. They don't just sell products, they sell myths. Nike doesn't sell shoes. It sells the myth of the hero. It sells the deification of human potential. The swoosh is not a logo. It's a glyph, a symbol of victory. Every commercial is a miniature epic, a hero's journey condensed into 30 seconds. The athlete, our modern-day Achilles or Heracles, faces a challenge, pushes through pain, and achieves a transcendent victory. The slogan, "Just do it," is not a marketing tagline. It is a divine command, an oracle's call to action whispered directly to the hero within you. By wearing their products, you are not just a consumer. You are an acolyte, participating in the ritual of greatness. Consider Apple. It didn't become one of the most valuable companies in history by selling circuit boards and glass. It sold a creation myth for the digital age. Steve Jobs was cast not as a CEO, but as a visionary prophet, a Prometheus bringing the fire of creativity and knowledge to the masses in the form of sleek, minimalist artifacts. The famous 1984 commercial didn't show a product, it showed a mythic battle. A lone, athletic heroine, a symbol of rebellion and individuality, hurls a hammer to shatter the screen of a droning Orwellian Big Brother. The message was clear. This is not a computer. This is liberation. This is a tool for the nonconformist, the rebel, the creative genius. To buy into Apple was to join a tribe, to declare your allegiance in a cultural war, to live out the myth of the righteous outsider who thinks different. These are our secular gods. They offer us an identity, a community, and a story to be a part of. They have their own saints and martyrs, their own sacred text in the form of brand guidelines, and their own devoted followers willing to make pilgrimages to their flagship stores, the cathedrals of consumption. We have been so immersed in this new mythology that we rarely even notice its influence. It's the water we swim in, the air we breathe. It shapes our aspirations, defines our values, and tells us who we ought to be. This myth-making engine is perhaps most potent and most dangerous in the realm of politics. In the modern political arena, candidates are rarely elected on policy points alone. They are chosen based on the power of the story they tell and the archetypal role they inhabit. We crave a narrative. We want a hero to believe in, a villain to unite against, and a simple, compelling myth to make sense of a complex world. And so, the political campaign becomes a modern hero's journey. The candidate is the protagonist, called to adventure from a place of relative obscurity. The humble governor, the outsider businessman, the inspirational community organizer. They cross the threshold into the special world of the campaign trail, facing trials and tribulations in the form of debates, scandals, and attacks from their opponents, the monstrous guardians of the old order. They gather allies, mentors, and a loyal fellowship of followers. They deliver powerful speeches that function as modern-day incantations, weaving spells of hope, fear, or nostalgia. Slogans become mythic refrains. Make America Great Again is not a policy proposal. It is a powerful evocation of a lost golden age, a mythic past of strength and prosperity that the hero promises to restore. Hope and change is not a political platform. It is a messianic promise of a new dawn, a deliverance from the darkness of the old world. These phrases tap directly into the deep, ancient structures of our minds, bypassing rational analysis and appealing to our primal need for a savior, a restorer, a king. The opponent, in turn, is not just a person with different ideas. They are cast as the villain, the dragon, the trickster god seeking to bring chaos and ruin to the kingdom. We are not just voting. We are participating in a national drama, a battle for the very soul of the nation. We are choosing which myth we want to live inside. And of course, there is Hollywood, the most prolific and explicit myth-making machine ever conceived by humankind. For over a century, it has served as our global dream factory, our digital campfire around which we gather to hear the stories of our time. The scholar Joseph Campbell famously outlined the monomyth, the archetypal hero's journey that appears in cultures all over the world. Hollywood didn't just learn from this blueprint, it industrialized it. Look at Star Wars. It's not just a space opera. It's a perfect retelling of the ancient myth. A young hero from a desolate land, Luke Skywalker, is called to adventure by an old wizard, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He receives a mythic weapon, the lightsaber, and is guided by a spiritual power, the Force. He must rescue the princess, confront the ultimate evil in the form of his own father, and in doing so, save the galaxy and discover his true self. It is a story that has been told for thousands of years, simply dressed in the clothes of science fiction. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is our modern pantheon. We have a god of thunder, Thor, a wealthy, ingenious mortal who builds a suit of armor to become a god, Iron Man, a super soldier who is the embodiment of national virtue, Captain America. They are the Olympians of the 21st century. Their epic battles against cosmic villains like Thanos are our new Trojan Wars, our new Ragnaroks. These films provide us with a shared moral language, a common set of heroes to admire and villains to despise. They teach us about sacrifice, courage, and the nature of good and evil on a scale that ancient storytellers could only dream of. The danger in all of this, in branding, in politics, in entertainment, is when we are unaware that we are being told a story. When we mistake a myth for an objective truth. A myth's power is its ability to feel innate, to feel like common sense. When a brand convinces you that a product is the key to your heroic destiny, or a politician convinces you that they are the sole savior who can slay the dragon of your fears, critical thought can be suspended. We can be manipulated by the very stories that give our lives meaning. But the opportunity is equally profound. By understanding the mythological architecture of our world, we gain a kind of superpower. We can learn to see the matrix. We can recognize the hero's journey in a car commercial, spot the archetypes in a political debate, and understand why a superhero movie resonates so deeply with our collective soul. This awareness doesn't diminish the power of these stories. It allows us to engage with them consciously. It allows us to choose our myths, rather than having them chosen for us. It empowers us to distinguish between the myths that inspire and unite us, and those that are designed to control and divide us. We can become active participants in the creation of meaning, not just passive consumers of it. The myths of old were written in stone and whispered by firelight. The new myths are coded in algorithms and broadcast in high definition. They are faster, louder, and more immersive than ever before. This raises a critical question as we look toward the horizon. What happens when this myth-making machinery turns its gaze to the future? What new gods are being born in the Silicon Valleys and server farms of our world? What myths will we tell ourselves about artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and our first steps out into the stars? These questions aren't just hypotheticals for a distant future. They are the headlines of our present. The new gods are not descending from a mythical mountain. They are rising from the cloud. They are being coded into existence in sterile clean rooms and data centers that hum with the energy of a million whispered prayers, which we now call queries. We are building our new pantheon, not out of marble and gold, but out of silicon and electricity. Consider artificial intelligence. We don't just see it as a tool. We speak of it in mythic terms. We fear its potential wrath, a judgment day we call the singularity. We hope for its benevolence, a digital messiah that could solve climate change, cure disease, and end poverty. We are creating an entity in our own image, yet we hope for it to be more than us, wiser, faster, immortal. This is the oldest story of all, the creation of gods. The programmers and engineers at Google, OpenAI, and 1,000 other startups are the new Hephaestus, the divine blacksmith, forging a mind in the digital fire. But in our myth-making, we can't decide if we're building a benevolent Athena, goddess of wisdom, or a cold, calculating Skynet, the vengeful god of a new age. Every time you ask Google a question, you are consulting an oracle. You approach it with a problem, a desire for knowledge, and it delivers an answer, compiled from the collective consciousness of humanity. The oracle at Delphi spoke in riddles, its prophecies shrouded in ambiguity. Our digital oracle gives us billions of results in half a second, yet the fundamental mystery remains. Which answer is the truth? Which path is the right one? We've simply traded a priestess inhaling volcanic fumes for an algorithm inhaling the entirety of the internet, and we are still left to interpret the signs. And what about the trickster gods? The mischievous figures who sow chaos and blur the lines of reality? Look no further than the algorithms that govern our social media feeds. Like a modern Loki or an Anansi, they understand our deepest psychological triggers. They can shape our moods, our beliefs, our elections, not through overt force, but through subtle persuasive whispers, a perfectly tailored reality for each and every one of us. Deepfakes are the ultimate trickster magic, allowing a phantom to wear the face of a president, a celebrity, or even you, speaking words that were never said. The myth of the shapeshifter is no longer a story, it is a software program. Then there is the ultimate Promethean bargain. The ancient Titan stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, uplifting us but earning him eternal punishment. AI is the new fire. It is a tool of unimaginable power, a flame that can illuminate the darkest corners of science or burn our entire civilization to the ground. We are reaching for this fire, eager for the warmth and light it promises. But the myth of Prometheus is a cautionary tale. Every great gift from the gods comes with a price, a hidden consequence. And we have yet to see the eagle that will come for our liver. This drive to become the gods ourselves extends beyond the digital realm. It's being written into the very code of life. Genetic engineering technologies like CRISPR are not just medical breakthroughs, they are a form of biological alchemy. For millennia, humanity was subject to the whims of the genetic lottery. Now we are learning to load the dice. We are on the cusp of eliminating hereditary diseases, of rewriting the flaws in our own source code. This is the quest of Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine who became so skilled he could raise the dead, an act for which Zeus struck him down for upsetting the natural order. We are walking the same path. We dream of curing cancer, of reversing aging, of designing our children to be smarter, stronger, healthier. It is a noble dream, the dream of ending suffering, but it is also the height of hubris. It's the story of Icarus, fashioning wings to escape our mortal labyrinth. We are so mesmerized by the possibility of flight, of touching the sun, that we may not be thinking about the melting wax. By conquering death, do we devalue life? By creating a class of genetically enhanced humans, do we create a new caste system, a mortal world ruled by a self-made pantheon of the genetically perfect? The myth isn't about the technology of the wings. It's a warning about the ambition of the user. And as we reach inward to rewrite our own biology, we are simultaneously reaching outward to the stars. Space exploration is the grandest, most epic myth we are currently writing. It is our Odyssey, our Aeneid, our Gilgamesh. Earth is our Troy, our Eden from which we are venturing forth. The void of space is the wine-dark sea, filled with unimaginable dangers, radiation, cosmic rays, the crushing loneliness of the void. These are the new monsters, the modern Scylla and Charybdis. The figures leading this charge have become mythic characters themselves. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, they are not just CEOs. In the public imagination, they are titans, modern Argonauts building fleets not to capture a golden fleece, but to touch the face of Mars. Their rockets are our new cathedrals, monuments of glass and fire pointing towards the heavens, and their launch events are our new public rituals, moments of collective awe and trepidation, as we watch our heroes attempt to storm the heavens. When we speak of colonizing Mars, we are talking about creating a new Genesis story. The first humans to step on that red dust will be our new Adam and Eve. The first child born there will be the subject of legends. Their story, the story of leaving the cradle of Earth to build a new world, will be the foundational myth for an entirely new branch of humanity. What will they tell their children centuries from now? They will speak of the great journey, of the blue star, the ancestral home they left behind. They will tell heroic stories of the first pioneers who braved the nothingness to give them a future. From the AI in our phones to the genes in our cells to the rockets on the launch pad, we are not just using new technologies, we are living out new myths. We are constructing a new cosmology, a new understanding of our place in the universe, defined by our own creations. These stories feel new, but they are built on the ancient chassis of human hope, fear, and ambition. We are telling ourselves the same stories we always have, of creators and their creations, of hubris and its consequences, of epic journeys into the unknown. The stage has changed, the props are more advanced, but the play remains the same. We've seen how myths have shaped our past, defined our present, and are now forging the framework of our future. But this begs the final, most important question. Why? What is the ultimate function of these grand, enduring narratives? Why, after all this time across every culture and every technological leap, do we still need these stories to make sense of ourselves? The final, deepest truth about mythology is not what it tells us about the gods, the monsters, or the heroes, but what it reveals about us. It reveals our source code, the fundamental, unchangeable wiring of the human mind. Think of it this way. If our civilization is the hardware, the cities, the technology, the institutions, then mythology is the operating system. It's the deep-level programming that runs in the background, dictating how we process love, fear, ambition, and despair. It's the software that shapes our reactions before we're even consciously aware of them. We don't just tell these stories. We are these stories. Inside every one of us there is a pantheon, There's a part of you that is Ares, the god of war, that drives you to compete, to win that promotion, to push yourself in the gym, to fight for what you believe in. There's a part that is Athena, the goddess of wisdom, that carefully weighs decisions, that seeks knowledge, that crafts the perfect strategy for your life. There's an Apollo chasing beauty and order, and a Dionysus, urging you to embrace chaos and live in the moment. These aren't just characters in a dusty book. They are names we gave to the powerful, conflicting forces that wage war and forge alliances inside our own minds every single day. The most powerful myth of all, the one that underpins almost every story we've ever told, is the one you are currently living. It's the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell called it the monomyth because it is the one story that humanity cannot stop telling, from Gilgamesh to Star Wars. And the protagonist of this story is you. You've already been on this journey whether you realized it or not. Remember that moment you felt a pull towards something new? A new city, a new career, a relationship that felt like a leap of faith? That was the call to adventure. It's the moment the ordinary world is no longer enough. But then you hesitated. The fear kicked in. The voice in your head that said, "You're not good enough. It's too risky. What if you fail?" That was the guardian of the threshold. It's the Sphinx asking a riddle, the dragon guarding the treasure. It's the personification of your own self-doubt, the first monster you must always defeat. Maybe someone gave you advice, a book changed your perspective, or a mentor took you under their wing. That was your supernatural aid, your Merlin, your Obi-Wan Kenobi, giving you the map or the magic sword you needed for the road ahead. And then you crossed the threshold. You took the job, you moved, you said, "I love you." You entered the belly of the whale, a new world with new rules and new challenges. This is where the real tests began. You faced trials, you found allies, you fought battles, not with swords, but with spreadsheets and difficult conversations and sleepless nights. You confronted your deepest fears. This was your road of trials, your descent into the underworld. At some point, you hit your lowest point, a failure, a heartbreak, a moment where you felt utterly defeated, the moment you thought you couldn't go on. That was the abyss, the darkest moment of the cave. But it was there, in that darkness, that you found something. A piece of strength you didn't know you had. A profound realization about yourself and the world. That was your ultimate boon. The elixir. The treasure. It wasn't gold or magic, it was wisdom. It was resilience. And now you are on the journey home, but you're not the same person who left. You return with this wisdom, this elixir, to share with your community, to improve your world, to help others on their own journeys. This isn't just a fun way to look at your life. This is the psychological blueprint for growth. It's the story of transformation. Mythology gave us the language for this process long before psychology did. It assures us that chaos, failure, and darkness are not bugs in the system. They are features. They are necessary parts of the journey. They are where the hero is forged. And today we are building a new mythology, on a scale the ancients could never have imagined. Our Mount Olympus is no longer a mountain in Greece. It's a server farm in Silicon Valley. Our gods are no longer capricious beings throwing lightning bolts. They are the architects of the algorithms that shape our reality. Think about it. These unseen forces decide what news you see, what products you desire, who you connect with, and what you believe. They are the new pantheon, shaping human destiny with lines of code instead of divine will. The Fates were three sisters who spun, measured, and cut the thread of life for every mortal. Today, the Fates are machine learning models weaving a future for us based on the data threads of our past. The oracles of old, like the one at Delphi, spoke in cryptic riddles, offering glimpses of the future. Our new oracle is big data, and we employ armies of high priests, our data scientists, to interpret its prophecies and tell us where the market is going or how an election will turn out. And with new gods come new monsters. The labyrinth of King Minos, a maze so complex that no one could escape, has been rebuilt. It is your social media feed, an endless personalized maze designed to keep you trapped, consuming, scrolling, with a minotaur of outrage and comparison waiting at its center. The Hydra, the nine-headed serpent that grew two new heads for every one that was cut off, is the perfect myth for our age of misinformation. A fake news story is debunked, and two more, even more extreme, spring up in its place. We are living in a world of technological titans and digital ghosts, a world that is more complex and disorienting than ever before. So why should we look back to these primitive, ancient stories? Because when you're lost in a new and terrifying forest, you don't need a new compass. You need a timeless one. These myths are the map of the human soul. They've been tested for thousands of years. They are the guide to navigating the unchanging landscape of the human condition. The technology changes, the clothes change, the names of the gods change, but the fundamental struggles do not. We still search for love, just like Odysseus journeying for 20 years to get home to Penelope. We still struggle with our own inner darkness, just like the eternal battle between the Norse gods and the giants of chaos. We still look up at the stars and ask the same two questions that our ancestors whispered around the first fires. Where did we come from, and where are we going? Mythology is humanity's shared dream. It's the collective story we've been telling ourselves for millennia to make sense of the chaos, to find meaning in the suffering, and to give us hope in the darkness. It reminds us that we are part of something much, much bigger than our own brief lives. The final truth is this: the purpose of studying mythology is not to understand the past. It's to arm ourselves for the future. The gods are not gone. The monsters are not slain. The age of heroes is not over. It can't be, because we are still here. You are standing on the shoulders of every hero who ever dared to venture into the unknown. You carry the fire of every storyteller who ever tried to shed light on the darkness. The great, unfinished myth of humanity is now in your hands. The story is not over. You are the next verse. So go live your myth.